Okay, let's get going. Yesterday I was doing what Romanticism is. I was trying to tell you um, Romanticism is a philosophical pessimism. And when you say it's a philosophical pessimism, it is not a philosophical pessimism which is a general philosophical pessimism. It is a pessimism that is directed at what people at one time considered to be the civilization of the future, what people considered to be the most progressive era in the history of mankind, and that is the rationalist civilization. The rationalist civilization basically came into being. It basically came into being in the aftermath of the Renaissance, and also to a certain extent the aftermath of Reformation. So the Renaissance and the Reformation basically contributed to the emergence of the rationalist civilization. And the rationalist civilization also celebrates humanism. It celebrates humanism as in celebration of the abilities of the human being. Who is Babe Shan? Who's Babe Shan? You think you can come into class and do?
Sir, he is newcomer, sir.
Yeah, I've removed him. I can do without people like him. He's newcomer, meaning he's a newcomer to class. Admissions were over long ago. So if this is what he wants to do, good for him. I've removed him, and yeah. Um, somebody needs to switch off their mic, please. And why has he come back again? So, as I was saying, the rationalist civilization is a celebration of humanism, which itself is a celebration of the infinite capabilities of man to conquer nature, to basically, what do we say, to control uh, everything around him or her, because of the fact that the human rationality is considered to be the most effective form of uh, rationality, superior to anything. And therefore, it is not a surprise that humanism thought that people can, what should I say, people can um, people can um, use the bounties of nature. People can use the bounties of nature for their advantage. So you can manipulate nature, is what you will find as an argument in humanism. Uh, this was at the time when the new civilization, which is capitalism, was coming into being. And the new civilization held out a great deal of hope. And like I told you, people like John Locke thought that it would be the solution to the problem of poverty as well. But many years, almost a century, of capitalism demonstrated that it was none of these things that it claimed, or the proponents of it, like John Locke, claimed. It was not something uh, which, it is not something, what should I say? It is not something which delivered on its promises. In fact, in many ways, it did exactly the opposite of what it was supposed to do. It delivered the opposite of that. And therefore, you would see that there is a disillusionment with the capitalist slash Rationalist Civilisation. And this disillusionment is something that culminates in Romanticism. So it is in that sense a philosophical pessimism, because it does not believe that all the things that are claimed by rationalism are actually true. It believes that these are all just false claims. Okay, not only that, they see the rationalist civilization. They see the whole idea of there being only good in the rationalist civilization itself as a wrong construction. So Romanticism, therefore, has to be understood as a reaction to the claims of the rationalist civilization. And like I told you, Rousseau, who very correctly um, gave us a picture wherein he believed that art and artists, and he used art as an umbrella term, uh, though he didn't really feel the necessity to include philosophical writings in it. But he definitely talked about paintings, he talked about sculpture, he talked about architecture, and you would also see that he talked about a number of these um, things that actually culminate. Okay, he talked about a number of these things which actually culminate in a proper, uh, what should I say, in a proper expression of what Romanticism is. So if you look at these different art forms, which is what we will be doing today, we will be doing art forms which can be called Romanticism. And these art forms which are actually these art forms which are I'm sorry, just distracted by pain. These art forms which are actually a good expression of Romanticism can be seen in the paintings of people such as Gericault, Turner, to a certain extent even Rembrandt, though he's from a slightly earlier period, Rembrandt, and there were a proliferation of painters, sculptors, and architects and poets who basically embraced the ethic and the aesthetic of the Romantic period. I also told you that this period is called the Second Enlightenment, with its roots in France mainly, and therefore it is also called the French Enlightenment. Therefore, it is also called the French Enlightenment. Now, if you take a look at this description, it is not very accurate. You should, if you're writing about it, you should write it as the Second Enlightenment, and in bracket, you should, or you can, not you can, you should write also called the French Enlightenment. Okay. Now, if the first Enlightenment is optimistic and celebratory of the human ability, this second Enlightenment is one which is the exact opposite of the first. Okay, the Second Enlightenment is exactly the opposite. If you look at the content of the Second Enlightenment, what you see is a disillusionment with the new civilization. And when you say new civilization, it includes both the rationalist and the capitalist components in it. So then let's pick up first and foremost. Let's see what the Romanticist movement does. The Romanticist it portrays the human being in stark contrast to the rationalist movement as a helpless and totally vulnerable person who is at the mercy of the environment which is around him. The usage of the term environment, please don't take it as that new usage that we have, which says environmentalism. Though at a later stage, there is also that kind of environment in Romanticism. But right now, when I'm talking about uh, a person being at the mercy of the environment, that means we are talking about the things which surround the human being, particularly nature. Particularly nature and how these can reduce the human being to a helpless creature. This is in stark opposition to what we have seen. Okay, this is in stark opposition to what we have seen in the rationalist civilization. Please remember the rationalist civilization. The quote I had once given you from Alberti, who said, man was made in the image of God. He has intelligence and wisdom which no other animal has, which no animal has, and he has the ability to tame 1,000 wild horses. So that is the kind of thing that you're talking about when you talk about the rationalist civilization. But when we come to the Romanticist civilization, it is talking about exactly the opposite. Man is not in control of anything. The human being is not in control of anything at all. If his life is peaceful, it is because of the forces of nature letting him be or leaving him alone. So, if there is peace in man's life, that is because the various forces of nature are letting him be, not interfering with him, or they're just leaving the human being alone. So, you see, there are two expressions of there are two expressions of Romanticism. One is passive and is in the nature of lamentation of what has been lost due to the new okay, it is a lamentation of that. The second variety is aggressive and uses art to very aggressively to depict the helplessness of man in the face of adversity. So there are these two ways in which it is done. The part, first type, sorry, which is lamentation, is mainly found in poetry. Yesterday, I was talking to you about William Wordsworth, and I had told you that was a romantic poet. This whole thing is called Romanticism because it glorifies the past and abhors the present and fears for the future. This is how that lamentation works. So you see, if you look at William Wordsworth, as far as literary critics are concerned, they talk of him as a poet who celebrated nature. They talk of him, some of the more acerbic people, they talk of him as they talk of him as a plodder, Plodder, who didn't have inspiration in his poetry. Usually, he's contrasted with Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Coleridge wrote this poem called Kubla Khan, which is set in a place called Xanadu. And it is believed that Coleridge actually did some substance abuse. He used some kind of opioid, and that gave him uh, a high, and because of the high, he wrote this very, very inspired poem called Kubla Khan. I don't know if Akshay has read it. You will definitely find, in comparison, Wordsworth to be more of a wordsmith than inspirational poet. But you must understand that that is not a limitation on Wordsworth. It is quite possible It is quite possible that Wordsworth was writing the way he was deliberately in order to express his lamentation, almost like grief at what has been lost. So if you read that poem, which I had talked to you about once before, that particular poem came in the form of a few lines written, written. What am I saying? I'm sorry. Bad pain. You find Wordsworth writing this poem, lines written a few miles above the Tintern Abbey, in which he basically is talking about how beautiful Tintern Abbey is, especially when you see it from a vantage on a hill and look at the Tintern Abbey. So he talks about trees that are long and high, starting in the ground and reaching for the sky. He talks about the beautiful hedgerows. He talks about the various different flowers that are there. He loves the stillness and peace of the Tintern Abbey. And contrasts this with the, what do we call, he contrasts this with the capitalist urban civilization, where people don't have time for anything. They don't have the time to sit and stare at the Tintern Abbey like he was doing. And he says people are caught up in the hustle and bustle of life. And he also talks about what people are missing. He talks about the anxieties that people suffer in the capitalist civilization. So he describes the beauty of the Tintern Abbey, contrasts it with the life of a capitalist society, and he also writes one very, very important line, which goes, behind all this beauty I can hear the still, sad music of humanity. That is a lamentation. And he is worried that nature will get further denuded. It will not be like what it is now. Now meaning when he wrote, even that spaces like the Tintern Abbey would gradually disappear. He expresses his fear of that. So that is a lamentation. Now there are artists, painters. There is a plethora of artists who express this lamentation through the painting of landscapes. Till the Romantic period, every painter had the human subject in his painting, but some of the romantic painters paint just landscapes and these are verdant and without any human subject in them. So the painting of landscapes begins only in the Romantic period. Till then, people never painted anything without uh, without a human subject being uh, present in some way or the other. There is always a human subject, but these paintings are those which these are those which do not have a human subject. They paint verdant. Verdant is green landscapes. Green has always been the color associated with a pristine environment. A pristine environment until Mercedes-Benz, for reasons best known to it, uh, started saying blue is the color of nature. Now everybody is talking about blue as the color of nature. I suppose they're talking about unpolluted skies. Well, doesn't matter, but traditionally, green has been the color of nature. After all, most of the things in nature, the flora, are definitely green in color. So you have this beginning in the Romantic period. Prior to that, nobody painted landscapes. Now, the painting of landscapes became extremely popular, and this is also the beginning abstract of abstract art. Nobody is painting trees. Nobody is painting grass. No, it's just using natural colors and just putting the colors on canvas or just putting it on paper or whatever. And that is supposed to, that is supposed to be the beginning of abstract art. Okay. So this is one thing that we see. And like I said, this is a certain kind of lamentation of what is lost. Now, from among the painters of landscapes, if you take the case of Turner takes it one notch above. What does Turner do? Turner takes lamentation to the next level, where he paints landscapes with a difference. What is the difference? The difference is that he introduces pollution into I really hate this. I wholeheartedly hate it. He introduces pollution. So what he's doing is this this form of um, painting is called contrast art. It is called contrast art because not only is he painting a landscape, but he's also a verdant landscape, but he's also introducing pollution into it. Pollution, This fellow who's calling me, he should be shot dead. I signed on his PhD thesis, knowing full well that he didn't write it because he can't. He can't ask him to write his name. He can't. I signed on his PhD thesis. I told him whatever will happen. You be ready for it. But for some strange reason, the examiners passed it. Now he has become so, what should I say, ambitious that he wants me to write a testimonial for him to get an ICSSR fellowship, postdoctoral fellowship. If I write that testimonial and this great man presents himself in front of that interview board, my reputation is actually going to go to hell. I told him I won't write a testimonial for you. My relationship ended with you when I signed on your PhD, knowing full well that you didn't write that PhD. And this thing of milking the system, taking as much money out of it as possible, this is what education has become. It has really become a very dirty thing. Very dirty thing. How can you even think of applying for an ICSSR postdoctoral fellowship when you can't read or write? I don't know. I don't like to say things like I am disgusted with people, but people force you to be disgusted. People force you to be disgusted. I really don't know. I sit in this class, my back is gone completely. On the one hand, I have my wife saying, let's go to a neurosurgeon, let's go to a neurosurgeon. And I don't want to have a surgery of my back. One, there is a disc protrusion which is very close to the spine, and if by mistake the surgeon touches the spine, I'll be paralyzed. This is what, after seeing an MRI, a neurosurgeon told me. You cannot be operated on. You cannot be operated on. That's what he told me. But my wife, I don't know which is worse. The pain that I have, which has now become also sciatic, so it runs into both legs. I don't know which is worse. This or the fact that the insistence of my wife that we should consult a neurosurgeon. When I have already done it and I've been told nothing will come out of it. So you see this, and look at the attitude of your class. 5 people. 5 people. Why enroll into a course if you don't want to study? Why enroll into a course? Why are you wasting government money, your own parents' money? Why are you doing this? There's some Babe Shan, or is he a puerile, imbecile who thinks he can do wonderful things like draw on the whiteboard? Not only does he not come to class till the end of the semester, when he comes, he misbehaves in class. I really don't know. I don't want to be a bitter person. That I'm very clear about. I don't want to be a bitter person, but it is becoming increasingly difficult to not be a bitter person. People who have asked me, will you finish the syllabus in time? In the past, our teachers didn't finish them. They haven't been coming for more than a month. People who have asked those questions. Now, if you don't even want to attend class, why do you need the syllabus? Akshay says they are watching videos. They are not. Nobody is watching from your class, with the exception, I think there are 2 or 3 people. Not regularly, because I get the analytics. I know where the traffic is coming from. So I really wonder what kind of life it is that I'm leading. I'm very disgusted. The day started extremely badly. I'm in pain, and that man draws a line. Where are you? Some kind of pranksters. these kind of pranks belong in third-rate colleges. They belong there. They don't belong here. Anyway, I'm sorry about that. So to get back to what Turner does is contrast art, because he's contrasting in the same painting. He's contrasting art with, not art, beauty with ugliness that is coming from the chimneys of factories and destroying the beauty of nature. Now, this is also still a mild form. It's not very different from lamentation, just because it introduces this bit, which is contrast art, which introduces pollution into landscapes. The really aggressive form of art that one tries to change what constitutes the aesthetic and to depicts human beings as totally helpless and fearing for their lives. This art comes from Gericault. Obviously, he's a French painter. Gericault, the name itself. So, what did Gericault do? What did Gericault do? Let's take up the first part. He wanted to change the aesthetic. If you look at If you look at the paintings of Peter Paul Rubens, who's not a Renaissance artist but comes later. Renaissance artists, Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, they are celebrating man. The Sistine Chapel's painting by Michelangelo is very, very beautiful. I forgot to put something here. Symmetry. Look at any of Michelangelo's paintings. They are completely full of symmetry. The colors are bright. Everything is very nice and hunky-dory. But when it comes to Gericault, Gericault paints the morbid. He sat in morgues with just a lamp and studied dead bodies, and by changing the position of the lamp, he painted dead bodies in, he painted dead bodies in different ways. So he didn't try to find the aesthetic in the living. He went to defy the typical Peter Paul Rubens kind of depiction and painted dead bodies. Number of dead bodies he painted. And he kept changing the angle of the lamp so that light falls in a certain way. And this, for him, was the new aesthetic. He wanted people to know their finitude. He was trying to tell people, don't celebrate life, because this is how you're going to end up. This is where and how you will be. So there's nothing to celebrate in life. There's no beauty. Gericault also painted paintings. Okay, bad English, but where he shows people who are poor, not properly clothed, prostitutes, and all that is considered to be an aberration on of he emphasized on this. He painted this is another thing he did. He, in order to paint these he didn't use bright colors. There's no sunshine. It's all very dark, very, very dark. And this, he said, is reality. This, he said, is reality. Then he also specialized in painting shipwrecks. Okay. He also specialized in painting shipwrecks. A ship made of wood, those days they were made of wood, battered by a storm and broken to pieces, and the people in the ship desperately hanging on to pieces of broken wood to prevent themselves from drowning. These were also done, these were also done with dim and dark colors. The fury of nature clearly visible in the form of dark clouds, sleet of rain, and the expression of fear and helplessness, showing through on the faces of the people who were basically trying to save themselves and their lives. So this is what he specialized in. This is another thing. If one was painting in morgues or mortuaries, where he painted the dead instead of the living, this was where he showed the full fury of nature. Okay, this was done to debunk the rationalist belief that nature could be conquered and manipulated for the good of the human being slash individual. this is a defiance this was a defiance of that. So this is what you find in Gericault's paintings. Now, I don't know, there's no time. One small bit got left out. I think I'm going to do that in the next class and just get on to Rousseau. Just 5 minutes is what because I haven't touched upon architecture. The Renaissance period and what followed was called the Baroque period of art and architecture, which was replaced later by Rococo architecture. It'll take just 5 minutes, but we don't have that time right now. So we'll do that. We'll do that on Monday. Incidentally, I've decided that what we did today is also a part of the syllabus for your exam. What we did till today is a part of the syllabus for your exam. And so please be prepared with all this. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.